I'll just use a switch for debugging. I'll just make it really big here. Plug that into the keyframe so that now it'll work normally, and now it will be debugging mode and it will just happen. So I can play time and just watch the animation happen. So you can see the bricks they fall, but they don't fall in a crumbly cool way. They just go straight down and don't change direction at all. So I'll change it using a force applier, or a couple of force appliers probably. To have the grid. And similar to a trigger zone or a fog gadget, this has a gizmo, so I can just grab that and move it around. And I want to give it a kind of offset feel. So this will shove sculpts, it will apply force to sculpts so that they kind of move away from it. So you can see the ones on the side were kind of shoved to the side a little bit, and now they're all kind of a little bit wonky. But these ones on the end aren't. So I'm going to add it kind of here and give it a fall off with that same trick we talked about earlier. And I'm going to add another one over here and just scale it down a bit. So now when they fall away they get this nice kind of crumbly look. That one's, if you make it like that, then it won't kind of shove to the side too much. Let's try that. Like that. But we also want a kind of general gradient that they're being pushed down further over here. So I'll just make a copy, and I think I'll use, I'll use a cube shape, have a smaller fall off for this one, and we can just edit the settings in here if we want to. And I'll put it on like an angle like that. And I'll have it go out like that. And we'll start it off here, so it won't be really affecting anything at all. I'll just turn these circular ones off. So it shouldn't be affecting anything, yeah. And then we'll animate it going left to right, so that it affects the bricks more to this edge as the animation goes on. So in here, I'll have a keyframe, and if we just select that, then we can still see the gizmo, and I'll grab that gizmo, and that should record where it is, and then I'll copy that over here and record into that. And I'll use the precise move to just move it over here. That'll do. And now I'll blend these with L1 and X, and it makes it transition from there to there. So I'll just do that so I can visualize it. Cool, so it's basically just too slow. So I'll do that. And let's give it a bit of variation on the speeds. And we can always drag this in to chop off the start. And we want it to kind of stay at that end, so I'll just scale that up, like so. So these ones aren't doing anything now, remember? So we want that one to start further over, so it does affect some of those first ones. Something we probably want to use is, instead of this, which is radial from that point there outwards, it pushes outwards or pulls towards that dot while the sculpt is in this zone. I'll use directional. So now we have an arrow, and we can say we always want it to be pushing down like that. So let's try that. Yeah. So that kind of gives the idea that it was you putting pressure on this end of the brick that it starts falling apart. So now I'll turn these on. So now you kind of get this randomness, but it also falls further on this side. which is cool. But now if the character is in the way, or within these zones, that will get shoved around as well. So if you turn up the strength, you can see it getting affected by the puppet gets affected by this zone. So really we want just the bricks to be affected, and that will also be better for performance because then it's going to ignore anything apart from the bricks. So let's double tap X again and tweak it and give it a label of object. I'll actually give it, because just using one label you might want other objects in the scene, I'll give it two labels. I'll give it target and object, for example, and double tap X, do the same for these. And while you're in one group, you can actually hover over something else and go straight into that group, like that. Object, target, and then these, object, target. Cool, and then we just edit these. I'll do the same trick where you select multiple of those gadgets and then edit it all at once. So if it was just one label we were looking for, we could do this one, but we can go all selected, so it has to have object and it has to have target at the same time. So even if our puppet was object, this would ignore that because it's not got object and target. Right, so let's just double check what our labels on the puppet is, and it's got no labels at all, so that's fine. So if I put this over here and turn up that strength again to demonstrate, it's just not being affected at all. So that's good. Now let's just turn that off and test one last time. It kind of has this funny thing where one of them gets caught over here. So what I'll do is I'll just cheat, and in this keyframe here I'll just make this one non-collidable. So it'll be collidable while the puppet is standing on it, but when it actually gives way it won't be, so it'll just fall away like that. But now the force applier isn't affecting it because it looks for collidable objects, so we'll have it will have it ignore whether it's collidable or not by clicking on both for the collidable row. Yeah, that's not too bad. So to actually save a little on performance, you could put these in the timeline so that they're not powered all the time. And now none of this stuff in here will be powered, so it won't be applying force to anything. Just make sure that's the same length. So it won't have to process that in the simulation and whatnot. So let's just do that. Cool. I'd like to thank Whitebeardy, Mobius DT, VGA Port Authority, and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Check out TAPgiles.com to find out how you can support me in helping Dreams creators. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.